So today we are going to talk about the principle of design called variety. So why would we want variety in a picture? Well, our brain likes to see patterns, but if something is a little bit different or a little bit off, it catches our eye. And so we stay there longer. We think about it longer. So if we want to add excitement to an art piece, or we want people to notice something to stand out, then we use variety. There are a lot of ways that you can add variety. Today we're going to talk about 4 of them, and then I'm going to tell you the biggest trick to variety that I know. So, what is variety in size? Well, that's easy. You can make small shapes, you can make medium shapes, or you can make large shapes. And that is also, variety or size is relative. So this might be large on this paper, but on a 3 foot by 3 foot canvas, that's small. The next way to increase your variety is to change the shape. So if you have something going along like this, and they're all pretty much the same shape, and then all of a sudden you add something different, what's the eye gonna notice in that line? Well, definitely the triangle. The next way to add variety is by changing the color. So you'll notice, just as the same with the shape, I am just repeating the color, this minty green or forest moss. And all of a sudden I just change it and then go back to it. So adding variety, it depends on how much you want that thing to pop out, because I could do several different colors and that would be a lot of variety. But if you want one thing to stand out and you want to really emphasize one area, the best way to do that is to simplify all the things around it and then just change that one thing. And the last way today that we will talk about adding variety is by changing the texture. So you might have a really bumpy texture, and then a really smooth texture. And for the trick, the easiest way to add variety is just to ask, what is the opposite? That is my favorite question to ask. So if something's getting a little boring and you need some variety, just ask yourself, what would be the opposite of this? So you'll notice the shape or the texture or the line or the color of the object, and then choose the opposite. So there you have it, some excellent ways, some easy ways, some very simple ways to add variety. Okay, we're just going to start warming up our brain by using this note card. We're going to divide the area with a couple of curved and straight lines, and then I'm going to take the oil pastels and I'm going to make marks on the card. And as I make marks along the card, I'm going to try to mix it up, trying to change the colors. And then after I've added that oil pastel pattern across the card, I'm going to paint in the spaces with watercolor and use watercolor resist to finish off the project. So for these dots, I put a layer down, and then I would mix it with another color or even a couple more colors over the top of these dots. I also, when I did the watercolor, I put the first layer down, and then I decided if I wanted to darken the value and add another layer darker than that, or even make it less intense by adding gray over the top of it. For this project, we are going to do a little design. So we're going to split this page into 4 quarters, and we're going to play with variety. So we're going to do the same design in each of these areas, but we are going to change it each time. So actually, you're going to just pick one shape. So you can do rectangle, triangle, circle, whatever shape you want to do. Just keep it simple. And each time you cut it out, make sure that it is a little bit different each time so that it has variety. Okay, so for this project, I made this a stencil and I used all triangle shapes, but I switched so that some are longer, some are bigger, some are smaller. And then I split my page into 4 parts, and I'm trying to create variation within each one of these. This one I'm going to paint in black and white, and so there won't be a lot of variation. It's kind of the starter one. But then the next ones, I've gone and I've chosen oil pastels and drawn in some of the shapes, drawn around some of the shapes and outlined them. And each one I did, this one I did complementary color scheme with the red and the green and the blue and the orange. This one I stayed closer to these pinks and peach range and pastels. And then this one I tried to do some bright colors with some gray or neutral colors. So this one's the complementary color scheme. This one's more of the monochrome color scheme, and then this one is dealing with bright colors and less intense colors. So intensity, monochrome, complementary color scheme, and then this one's going to be the black and white. So I'm using my watercolors, oil pastels, and acrylics for this project also, just to let you know. I don't love to come off the edge of things like with a point here, so I'm either gonna take that more off the edge and go all the way off the edge or bring it back in, which I think I'm gonna bring it back in on this one. Your eye just picks up on that. It would pick up on that. The viewer's eye would pick up on that, and it would be distracting. That's not really where we want the eye to go. using different medium and seeing how they interact. I knew the watercolor would repel off of the waxy oil pastels, but and I also knew that the acrylic would cover it, but I think if I come back over with a paper towel, I can rub the acrylic right off because that oil pastel's underneath. It's just basically sitting on top of it. So I'm gonna do that on some of these. Just come back in and rub some of it off. Also, I think I'll come back in with oil pastel and see how it works on top of these different mediums. And add more layers, make it more interesting. All right, so I've just grabbed a Kleenex and I'm gonna take and where it's dry, I'm gonna try and rub back some of that. It flakes off a little bit. I can just take a clean, dry paintbrush and brush that off. This one's still wet, so I'm not gonna mess around with that yet while I wait for it to dry. Because I used a little more, I wet more of the acrylic down with that one. I'm gonna come back in and add some more oil pastel. Adding the pastel didn't seem to do a whole lot. I mean, you can see it. You can see the extra layer, but it didn't do anything overly exciting. I was kind of hoping it would save the space of the layer underneath and then I could rub it off and have the paint layer there. Maybe if I would have been more patient and let it dry a little better, but I was actually rubbing the paper off because it was still too wet to rub. So where I've already rubbed off the oil pastel, it's also not rubbing off anymore. So maybe wait to do that until the end, because you only get one layer to rub off and then it doesn't rub off anymore. These two are too close to the same color, so I need to do something about that. But I also feel like this background, all of my backgrounds kind of turned dark, so I'd like to lighten this background up. I have one lighter background with the darker shapes. I love how this vibrant green and the red and this one interact with that red. And I love the oil pastel texture of this one, but then the outline of this one. So that's working for me. I don't know about these two shapes. I'm gonna have to think about that. So it's this project is sort of like working on 4 mini projects all at one time. And I really like to work on a couple of projects at the same time because it works well for one, for drying time, because while one's drying you can go to the next one. But the other thing is it's fun to experiment and play with a lot of different ideas, especially on this one where the design is the same for all of them, but each picture is going to turn out different than the next. Of all of the shapes on this design, I like this one the best, so I'm gonna try and keep it. Not get too overlapping on it. Trying to pull back some of that acrylic, because I'm not going to be able to rub it off. I guess you can't get too attached. Oh, we had that conversation before. This one's almost lost in there. I almost forgot I had another shape there because it was blending in. You can't see my watercolor palette, but I just put some orange on my paintbrush. I'm using watercolor there. I used blue watercolor here too. Sometimes it doesn't fit in the frame, so you can't quite see what I'm doing. And with this, I'm just trying to take some of that puddling out. So I just dry my brush on my rag and then I drag it along the edge of the where it has a lot of watercolor. I'm just kind of removing some of that color. If I don't remove it, it will, when it dries, it will just dry with like a puddle edge. So I'm sort of wishing that I would have done an oil pastel along the outside edge. I feel like that would make it a lot more interesting to do the whole edge. I could try that with this one, but I think what I've found is once you start painting on top, the oil pastel has far less of an effect on the project, but let's try it. Why not? Why not experiment? That actually turned out better than I thought it would. It actually did something. It did add texture to that background. So there's a lot of things that I could do. I could add pattern. I could add like a circle or something on one of these just to make it different. I don't think that you need to add all of the elements of art all at once to make an effective piece of art. In fact, sometimes simplifying is better. So in this case, we're just focusing on color and shape and a little bit of texture. So I'm looking at these and my head keeps on trying to turn them. So maybe they will look better if we turn them anyways. But now I'm just looking to see what I like and what I don't like. Of all of these, well, this one's already finished because it was so simple. But of these three, I like these two more. And this one is working the best for me. But these two shapes I feel like are still incomplete. And then this one I'm liking more and more. But once again, these two are too similar, so I have to figure out a way. This one kind of turned into unintentionally a complementary color scheme with just orange and blue. That was not my intention. I was working on intensities, but I think it turned into that because to change the intensity of the color, you add the opposite. So I guess it kind of lent itself. I think another reason why I'm not feeling like this maybe is as successful as I want is because it doesn't have as many values in it. So I think, even though I like this one, I think I'm gonna make it really dark so that we can add a really dark value in there. But I want to keep it a less intense dark. So I'm gonna add some black to it. Maybe I should have left a little bit of that edge because it was interesting. So maybe I'll remove some of the color on that to bring back more depth. This one I'm just putting a little layer of gray over the top. I'm not trying to change the value as much as I'm trying to change the intensity and make it less intense. That one feels pretty complete to me now. And this one does not. I was going for monochrome here. So maybe that's what I need to focus on here, is just bringing back in the pink colors. I know this one's supposed to be monochrome, but it's more becoming adjacent, color schemed. I get bored, I think. And I kind of just go with my instincts, what I'm feeling. So I don't think I'm ever feeling very monochrome. That's the problem. But I'll try to keep a little bit of the pink tint to it so then it stays unified. These ones are all getting a little boring because I keep losing my outline, my edge. Well, I'm thinking this needs to be darker, but because I didn't want to use such a harsh dark as black, I found the darkest warm variation I had on my table, which is kind of a plum color. But I knew it would mix fine with the pinks and the reds. But I didn't want to go all the way black. So that's a trick, to use darker color to darken something rather than always using black to darken things. This is way too close a value to the background. I'm giving up on the monochrome. I'm just really trying to bring back the pink in there, but I just don't like it. All right, that feels much better to me. So I'm going to remove the tape and call it a day. It's definitely time to get rid of this tape. It did not do very well on that edge. I just wanted to lighten that shape up, which I thought would do it with, it was a peachy orange that I used to do it, but anyway, just trying to get the right color and shade here. And soften that edge up a little bit too. Now that I've taken the tape off and turned it, because I think they look better this direction. Just adding a few details. So I'm darkening this one up now because it was way too close to that color, so just putting a little bit of brighter orange on that one too. Now all of those are outlined. And the thing is that they're all outlined and they're all about the same like thickness. They're just too similar. So I've cleaned up my workspace. I put all of my stuff away, and now I'm gonna come back in and I'm gonna look at this piece, and I'm gonna use my note card to write a few notes or ideas about the projects that I did and what I would like to try for the future. All right, so some of the things that I would like to work on, one is my monochromatic color scheme. I really struggled with that, and I was surprised at how unsuccessful I was at trying to follow the rules on that. So I would like to come back and revisit that and try to make a successful monochromatic picture. It is clearly just going to take me a lot more thought on how to do that. So I am going to come and revisit that. And also the same with the one that I wanted to change the intensities. I like how it turned out. I really like how it turned out, but that's just because I like the color combination of blue and orange. But because I use it so often, I'd like to try something different. And so that's another thing. I'd like to do this one again, but not have it become a complementary color scheme, just because that's what I fall back on when I'm choosing color. It was intuitive. This process was intuitive, which means that I didn't do a lot of pre-planning. The only thing that I really pre-planned was the design. It's hard to find the balance between planning ahead and just letting whatever comes come. So those are a few things that I'd like to work on for the future. All right, have a great day.